Everyone, I'm sure, has their own process for making live edge tables. Ours starts with flattening of a wood slab. So before we can get into the design process of what the slabs are going to look like glued together, or if it's a single slab and how big we're going to make it, we have to start with a flat piece of lumber. Sometimes during the flattening process, defects will reveal themselves that we usually try to cut out. The more defect you can cut out of a table prior to its finished product, the longer the useful life of that piece is going to be. So ours all starts with the flattening process. Once we have all of the pieces for a table flattened, then we can start to look at it and figure out where we're going to make our cut lines, what kind of defect we're dealing with, and any other things that might pop up along the way. Single slab tables are easy. Those, you flatten a piece of lumber and you basically cut it to the desired size. When you start to get into multiple piece glue ups, you usually flatten 2 to 3 boards. 2 if it's a book match, 3 if it's like a traditional table, as we would call it, where it's more than 2 pieces. You flatten the lumber, you figure out which sides will be the surface sides, and you'll make your cut lines based on that. When doing a table glue up, you have to alternate the grain of the boards to make sure that it's going to stay stable over time and there's not going to be any warping or twisting. So we have had slabs not cooperate no matter what you do. Sometimes you're flattening a slab, and the way I like to explain it to people is wood grain is kind of like an onion, and every layer that you cut into it, it opens up even more and it releases tension. So sometimes you're flattening a slab, even though it's perfectly dry, the ends will start to raise off the deck. So then you flip it over, you take a little bit more off the other side, and it does the opposite thing. So usually when we're working with wood that has a lot of tension in it, we have a tendency to break those down into smaller pieces and do glue laminations, cutting boards, table legs, things that we can make that don't require 8 to 10 foot pieces. Because what we don't want to do is glue 2 pieces of wood together that have too much tension in them, because that has a tendency to lead to warping and twisting over time. We make decisions on wood defect on a case-by-case basis. So we try not to ever put defect in a glue seam. We don't want to put knot holes right in the middle of where a slab is going to be glued to another one. You're never going to be able to avoid knots altogether, but we try to keep them in the center of the board where it won't affect the glue up. Sometimes we have to cut rot off the sides of trees, or soft spots, or bug holes. Cracks are a naturally occurring thing in a dry piece of wood. When we run into cracks or unstable areas, we usually shore that up with joinery to ensure that no matter what happens, that wood can't pull away from itself.